Hello and welcome back to Algebra 1 videos. This is section 4, and this is a section about multiplying polynomials and simplifying expressions. So what we're going to do today, we were doing monomials and binomials, so it wasn't too much, and foiling using the binomial when you're multiplying two binomials. But we're going to introduce a trinomial, a three-termed polynomial, and how you would multiply those. So it is a little bit of an extension of what we were doing. We're going to do this algebraically and by using geometric models, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's kind of do a quick review on FOIL. And I want to talk to you guys today about how FOIL really is the distributive property, okay? Distributive property. Gosh, can't spell today. Okay, so let's just do this. Let's do something simple. Let's do x plus 2 times, x plus 4, okay? Now, if we did this, all right, when we did FOIL, you'd multiply the first two together, and then you'd multiply the last two together, or the outside ones, okay? So when you do the first and the outside, think about what you're doing. You're taking x and you're multiplying it by x plus 4. Okay, so you can really just do it like this, where you take x times, so this term here, okay, multiply it by the entire thing over here, x plus 4, okay? That's what essentially you're doing when you're multiplying the first and the outside ones. Now when you do the inside ones, and then you do the last ones, you're taking 2 and you're multiplying it by x plus 4, okay? And so when you do this, you take x times x gives you x squared, x times 4 gives you plus 4x. Here you take 2 times x, so plus 2x, and then 2 times 4, which is plus 8. Combine your middle terms, okay, and you're going to end up getting x squared plus 6x plus 8, because these are like terms, they both contain an 8, and that's your value, okay? So, what I'm just showing you guys is that when you do FOIL, you're really doing the distributive property, but you're doing it twice. So you're taking this x value times this whole binomial, and this 2 times this whole binomial, okay? And the reason why I did it this way and showed you this is because when you have something like this where you have a binomial and a trinomial, you really have to use the distributive property, okay? So let's look at this. We're going to take 9g plus 4 times this trinomial, 2g squared minus 6g plus 1, okay? So it is kind of tedious, but let's do the 9g, okay, times your entire trinomial here. So I'm going to write this out as 9g times 2g squared minus 6g plus 1. Okay? And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 and I'm going to multiply it by the entire trinomial here. So I'm going to do plus 4 times, and let's do this, parenthesis, 2g squared minus 6g plus 1. Okay? Now I'm going to distribute this 9g into each of the values here into my trinomial. So as a result, if I do 9 times 2, it's going to give me 18, and then I'm going to do g times g squared. I'll do a couple, let me show my work here. Okay, and then I'm going to do 9g times negative 6g. Now if I take 9 times negative 6, that's going to give me, what's that going to give me? 54, so negative 54, and then g times g, okay? And then I'm going to take 9g times 1, so I'm going to get plus 9g, okay? All right, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to distribute the 4, so I'm going to put a plus sign here, okay? I'm going to take 4 times 2g squared, 4 times negative 6g, and then 4 times 1. So 4 times 2g squared is going to give me 4 times 2 is 8, and then g squared, and then 4 times negative 6 is going to give me negative 24g, and then 4 times 1 is just plus 4. Okay, so let's kind of simplify this, see what kind of like terms we can get. And so if I do g times g squared, this is going to give me 18g cubed. okay, minus 54, and then g times g is going to give me g squared, okay, and then plus 9g. Okay, and then we've got plus 8g squared minus 24g, and then plus 4. Okay, so now let's combine our like terms. Now I can combine the negative 54g squared and the positive 8g squared, okay? And so let me write this out as 18g cubed. And if I do negative 54 plus 8, so negative 54 plus 8, that's going to give me negative 46. So I've got minus 46g squared, okay, combining these two here. All right, and then if I combine the 9g and the negative 24g, so 9 plus negative 24 gives me minus 15g, and then plus 4. And that's it. Okay, it is kind of a tedious process, but it's important that we, know how to do it. Okay, so again, I'm just taking this term, 9g, multiplying it by the entire thing here, taking 4, multiplying it using the distributive property, simplifying it, combining like terms, and then writing it in standard form. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's do, let's multiply this one. Now we have different variables here, okay, but I'm going to do it the same way. Okay, I'm going to take negative y, and I'm going to multiply it by this entire trinomial. So over here, I'm going to do negative y, and I'm going to multiply it by the trinomial 7y plus w, and then minus 5, okay? And then I'm going to take negative 3w and multiply it by the entire trinomial here. So I'm going to do this. Now, because we're dealing with a negative here, I always like to add the negative. So plus negative 3w times 7y plus w minus 5. Okay. Now I'm going to try and show as many steps as I can for this. So I'm first going to do negative y times 7y times w and then times negative 5. Okay, we got to watch our signs here. So I'm going to do negative y times 7 times y, okay, and then negative y times w, so minus y times w, and then I've got negative y times negative 5, okay. Now let's go ahead and do the part where we distribute the negative 3w. So I'm going to multiply that by each of these values. So I'm going to take minus 3w times 7y minus 3w times w, and then minus 3w times negative 5. Okay, so now let's combine all of our like terms. Now a negative times 7 is going to give us negative 7. Y times y gives me y squared. Okay, minus y times w, I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, I can't combine those because they're two different variables, so I'm just going to leave it as minus yw. Okay, now a negative times a negative here is going to give me a positive number, so I'm going to do a plus, and then 5 times y is just going to give me 5y. All right, now over here I've got negative 3 times positive 7, so I'm going to get minus 21, and then y times w is just going to give me yw. All right. On the next one, we've got negative 3 times w, so that's going to give me minus 3w squared. And then negative 5 times negative 3 is going to give me plus 15w. Okay, now we've got quite a few terms here, and I'm trying to figure out which ones we can combine. The only ones that I can see that we can combine is this negative yw and this negative 21yw. All right, and that's it. So I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to do negative 7y squared minus, okay, I'm going to combine these. So I've got negative yw minus 21yw. That's going to give me minus 22yw. Okay, and then minus 3w squared. Okay, so we've got that term, and let's just do plus 5y and then plus 15w. Okay, and those are the only things that I can combine. Now, putting this into standard form is a little tricky. And so I just made sure that I had these in, in somewhat of a descending order. And you can rearrange these and reorder them however you want. But this one, I've got a y squared, y times w, w squared, and then y and w. I should probably put this one way on the outside, but as long as you can match them up, rearrange them, keep your signs straight, then we're good. Okay. So again, this is tedious. It is kind of a long process, but we need to know how to do it. All right. So let's do this using the box method. And so what I want to do, and I think it might be a little bit easier for you to use the box method. I don't care what you guys do, but as long as you get it right, that's all that matters. Okay. So I've got negative 2n plus 10 is my first polynomial. Okay, it's a binomial, so it has two terms. Notice how this box here has two terms. Okay, and then I'm multiplying it by this trinomial, 8n squared minus 3n minus 7. This has three terms, and so I'm going to put that up there. So this is going to be negative 2n and then positive 10. All right, this is going to be 8n squared minus 3n and then minus 7. Okay, so I'm going to multiply each of these, and this might be a little bit easier, maybe a little bit faster, but I'm just showing you guys all the different methods. Okay, so if I multiply this box and this box together, I've got negative 2 times 8, which gives me negative 16, and then n times n squared gives me an n cubed. Okay, on the next one I've got negative 2 times negative 3, which gives me positive 6. And then if I take n times n, that gives me an n squared. Okay. On the next one, I've got negative 2n minus 7 times negative 7. Negative 2 times negative 7 gives me positive 14, and then an n. Okay, and that's it. All right, so then on the next one, I've got 10 times 8n squared. So 10 times 8 is going to give me 80. Okay, and then just keep your n squared. There's no other n. 10 times negative 3n, 10 times negative 3 is going to be negative 30, and then an n. Okay, and then 10 times negative 7 gives you negative 70. Okay, so now we got to think about what can we combine here. I can combine the 80n squared with the 6n squared, and I can combine the negative 30n with a positive 14n. Okay, so as a result, all right, let's write this out. So I've got let's combine these first. Okay, 80n plus 6n, 80n squared plus 6n squared is going to give me 86n squared. Okay, and then I've got negative 30 minus 14, or I'm sorry, negative 30 plus 14, and that's going to give me negative 16. So this is negative 16n. Okay, so let's write out our first one, which is negative 16n cubed plus 86n squared minus 16n and then minus 70. Okay, and that's it. That's me multiplying it. So I think the box method might be a little bit easier. These are your like terms, and so I combine them. That's how I got my 86 here and negative 16n here. All right, so I think it's maybe a little bit easier, definitely less writing that you have to do. So, but just make sure we can do it right. That's all that matters. Okay, on this next page, we want to talk about a couple things, the sum of cubes and the difference of cubes. And what we notice here is we have this formula that says if you have a cubed plus b cubed, then you can write it as a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. Okay. What I want to do is make sure that this multiplies, and here's what we should get. Okay, from this, d plus 5, we should get d cubed plus 5 cubed, which is d cubed plus 125. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's multiply this all out. And I'm going to use the box method. I kind of liked the box method. And so I'm going to do this. I'm going to do 2 boxes here. Okay, and just like that. So I'm going to put the d and the 5 here. I'm going to put the d squared here, minus 5d there, and I'm going to put 25 here. Okay, so I'm going to do d times d squared, which is going to give me d cubed. Okay, I'm going to do d times negative 5d, so that's minus 5d squared. And I'm going to do d plus d times 25, so 25d. Okay. On the next one, I'm going to take 5 times d squared, which gives me positive 5d squared. Okay, I'm going to do 5 times negative 5d, so that's minus 25d. And then 5 times 25, which gives me 125. All right. So from this, what I want you to realize is that when you try and combine your like terms here, I've got a negative 5d squared and a 5d squared. That adds to 0. Okay, same thing here. If I've got positive 25d and negative 25d, that also adds to 0. So the only thing that you have was d cubed plus 125, which is what I assumed we were going to get over here. Okay, and it kind of follows that same thing. So if you see this pattern, you know, it is what it is. I would do the box method. I think the box method is easy, all right? But that's up to you guys, okay? I'll let you kind of do what you want to do. Okay, same thing down here. Now, if I see w minus 3 and see this same structure here, then I should get w cubed minus 3 cubed, okay, which is going to give me w cubed minus 27. So let's see what we get. Okay, I'm going to make my box. Okay, I'm going to try and make it a little bit neater. W, and then negative 3. Okay, and then I've got w squared. I've got 3w. And then I've got positive 9. Okay, so here's my box method. Okay, I'm going to take w times w squared, which is going to give me w cubed. Okay, I'm going to take, let me rewrite that, w cubed. Okay, let me do w times 3w, which gives me 3w squared. And then w times 9, which gives me 9w. All right, if I do the bottom one, do negative 3 times each of these. Okay, negative 3 times w squared gives me minus 3w squared. Negative 3 times 3w is going to give me minus 9w. And then negative 3 times 9 is just going to give me negative 27. Okay, so when I combine my like terms, again, notice what happens. Okay, negative 3w plus 3w, or sorry, negative 3w squared plus 3w squared is going to add to 0. Okay, if they're opposites and they're combining like terms, then you're going to add to 0. Okay, same thing with negative 9w and positive 9w. Those are going to add to 0. So as a result, in the end, you're just going to get w cubed minus 27, which is the same thing that we said we'd get here. Okay, so, you know, I'm not going to talk too much about the structure here. We'll talk about that later in the chapter, but I want you to be able to multiply these together, okay, and you should just end up with a sum or difference of cubes if you have that same kind of structure, okay. All right, let's talk about order of operations. And so, you know, when we do order of operations with a number, okay, with numbers, you know, your order of operations, PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Okay, so we want to evaluate what's inside the parentheses, evaluate the exponents, okay, multiply and divide from left to right, and then add and subtract from left to right. So here's what I've got. All right, with a numeric expression, I want to evaluate what's inside the parentheses first. So I get 6 minus 3 times, okay, and this is 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay, do that part first, and then you square it. All right, now I have to square the 6 before I do anything. Okay, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not squaring the 3, I'm squaring what's inside the parentheses. So I've got 6 minus 3 times 36. All right, now I have to multiply before I can do the subtraction. So I'm going to get 6 minus whatever 3 times 36 is, which is 108. Okay, and if I do 6 minus 108, that's just going to give me negative 102. And that's it. That's my answer. Okay, we've just evaluated that. Now, if we extend this idea over to algebra, okay, what I want you to think about is those same things apply. Okay, if I were to simplify this expression and turn it into some sort of, polynomial, which is what it is, I have to do some operations. Now, I want to do what's inside my parentheses first, okay? Now, x minus 1, all right, I can't combine those. Those aren't like terms, okay? So I just leave it as is, okay? That's a quantity. Now, I'm squaring this quantity, okay? So we have to do that part first. So let me rewrite this. So negative 4x plus 2 times x minus 1 times x minus 1, all right? And that's me squaring it. I'm taking this and multiplying it by itself twice, okay? So when I have that, I have to multiply it out. I have to FOIL it. Okay, so I'm going to get this. I'm going to get negative 4x plus 2, and then I'm going to put a big parenthesis here because I'm going to multiply all this stuff out, okay? And so if I do x times x, that's going to give me x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. Negative 1 times x is going to give me another negative x, and then negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Okay, now let me combine my like terms here, all right, first before we do anything else. So now I've got negative 4x plus 2 times the trinomial x squared minus 2x and then plus 1, okay? Now I'm not done, okay? All I've done is multiply this out. I still need to distribute this 2, okay? I still need to multiply it together before I can do anything. So let's think about it. We did our parentheses, okay? We couldn't do anything within those parentheses, so then we skipped to our exponents. Okay, we skipped to our exponents, okay? We did that, we multiplied it all out. Now I have to multiply, okay? Before I can add and combine anything else, I still have to multiply this 2 through. All right, so now I'm going to get this. I'm going to get negative 4x plus 2x squared minus 4x and then plus 2. Okay, and all I'm doing is taking each of these and multiplying it by 2. All right, so since there's no variable, I just keep the variables, multiply the numbers. All right, now I can combine like terms. Okay, I can combine the negative 4x and the negative 4x. So I'm going to get 2x squared. If I combine my like terms, it's going to give me negative 8x and then plus 2. Okay, so we can evaluate that. We can do all that, but we have to follow the order of operations. That is important. Okay. All right, let's do one more example, and then we'll be done with this video. On this one, we're simplifying polynomial expressions, okay? And we're given that a, b, and c are polynomials. A is equal to 2x plus 3, b is equal to x minus 4, and c is equal to x squared plus 1, okay? And we want to simplify b squared plus the quantity a minus c. So let's write this all together. So let's write, instead of b squared, okay, right here, I'm going to plug in x minus 4. So the first thing I'm going to get is x minus 4 quantity squared plus parenthesis. Now let's plug in the value for a. And a is 2x plus 3. So I'm going to do the quantity 2x plus 3. Okay, put that in parentheses because you have a quantity there. And then let's plug in the value c, and we're subtracting c. Now because we're subtracting a polynomial, it's important that we put that in parentheses so we can distribute that negative, okay? Parentheses are your friend, okay? Kind of like how fractions are your friend and kind of like how Pythagoras is my friend, okay? I consider Jim my friend, but he just can't find enough time for me. It's hard. It's a hard life I live, okay? All right, so now we want to evaluate this, okay? We've got this quantity squared plus the difference of these two quantities, all right? So let's do, anything inside our parentheses first, okay? I can't do anything here. So I've got x minus 4. I'm going to leave that as squared right now. Now I can do some operations here. Okay, I can distribute this negative into that. Okay, so I've got this quantity. I'm going to do 2x plus 3, okay, minus an x squared minus 1, okay? Now let's combine anything that we can combine here. So I've got the quantity x minus 4 squared plus, okay, and I've got negative x squared here plus 2x, and then I've got 3 minus 1, which is going to give me positive 2, okay? Now, I've done all the operations I can do inside of the parentheses, okay? And same thing here. Now I need to do my exponent, all right? So I'm going to rewrite this as x minus 4 times x minus 4, and then plus, okay, because I'm adding this, I don't really need the parentheses, but I'm going to put a negative x squared plus 2x plus 2, okay? Now I'm going to multiply these out. So I've got x times x, which gives me x squared, minus 4x, and then plus 16. Okay, and then I'm going to add that negative x squared plus 2x plus 2. Okay, so I'm going to combine my like terms here. So I've got x squared minus 8x plus 16 minus an x squared plus 2x and then plus 2. So if we combine our like terms, I've got an x squared here and I've got a negative x squared here. Okay, now with that negative x squared and the positive x squared, these cancel out and add to 0. All right, so now I'm going to combine my negative 8x and 2x. So that's going to give me a negative 6x. And then I'm going to take 16 plus 2, which gives me a plus 18. And that's it. Okay, so we just want to simplify that. So, you know, being able to operate within these polynomials is hard, but you got to see the structure first. Okay, and you know, it all stems from doing it with numbers. So whenever you have a question on something, we're going to do it with numbers first, and then we'll probably extend it onto the polynomials. So thanks for watching. You guys are doing a great job. Appreciate it. Let's keep up the good work. All right, see you. Bye.